for and accuses the FBI of trolling for terrorists. Men convicted in post 9/11 sting were easily manipulated petty criminals caught up overzealous FBI scheme, the judge says. I'm Tyrone Bowman. This is Tyrone Bowman Tonight. According to The Guardian, under the heading of U.S. News, 3 men convicted in a post 9/11 terrorism sting were ordered free from prison by a judge who deemed their lengthy sentences unduly harsh and unjust and decried the role of the FBI in radicalizing them in a plot to blow up New York synagogues and shoot down National Guard planes. Ontel Williams, David Williams, and Lijuri Payan, 3 of the men known as the Newburgh Four, were hapless, easily manipulated, and penurious petty criminals, caught up more than a decade ago in a scheme driven by overzealous FBI agents and a doggy informant, U.S. District Judge Colleen McMahon said on Thursday. The real conspirator was the United States, McMahon wrote in granting the men's request for compassionate release effective in 3 months. She said it was heinous of the men to agree to participate in what she called the government's made-for TV movie. But the judge added, the sentence was the product of a fictitious plot to do things that these men have never remotely contemplated and that were never going to happen. She excoriated the government for sending a villain of an informant to troll among the poorest and weakest of men for terrorists who might prove susceptible to an offer of much-needed cash in exchange for committing a false crime. The U.S. Attorney's Office declined to comment. A message was sent to the FBI. Citing concern for the men's health and her own qualms about the case, McMahon cut the 25-year mandatory minimum sentences she imposed in 2011 to time served plus 90 days. She said that would allow time for probation officials to prepare and for a lawyer to line up supportive housing for Payan, who has a severe mental illness. We are tremendously pleased that our clients are on their way home, even if it's 14 years too late, said Amit R. Gupta, part of a group of lawyers representing Payan and the Williamses, who are not related. Gupta described the 3 as destitute men entrapped for their race, religion, and working-class backgrounds by a government looking to spread fear of Muslims and justify bloated budgets. Kathy Manley, who represented Payan, said the prosecution should never have happened, but now at least the men will soon be out of prison. Samuel Braveman, who represented Payan at trial, called the ruling incredibly brave and just. The 4th man, James Cromity, wasn't part of the compassionate release request and is expected to complete his sentence in 2030. Committee's attorney, Carrie Lawrence, plans to speak with him about pursuing similar action. I'm confident he would be entitled to relief for the same reasons articulated by Judge McMahon for the other defendants, Lawrence said. Payan, Cromity, and the Williamses were arrested in 2009 during a period of heightened public and law enforcement concern about the threat of terror strikes within the U.S. by supporters of foreign extremists. Officials portrayed Cromity as the ringleader of a chilling plot among extremely violent men, loyal to a Pakistani terrorist group, though the government later decided not to present any evidence about foreign terrorist organizations at trial. A court complaint described him as a man seething with anti-American and anti-Semitic sentiment and eager to translate those feelings into action. Prosecutors said the defendants spent months scouting targets and securing what they thought were explosive in a surface-to-air missile aiming to shoot down planes at the National Guard base in Newburgh, New York, and blow up synagogues in Riverdale and in the Bronx. They were arrested there after allegedly planting bombs that were in fact packed with inert explosives supplied by the FBI. Relatives said the 4 men were down on their luck after doing prison time. The men's lawyers raised questions about entrapment, a legal defense that argues people were entitled or enticed into illegal conduct they would not have otherwise committed. Defense lawyers said a federal informant, Shahid Huthan, tried to stir up the men with rhetoric and chose targets, offered hefty payment, brought the defendants groceries, and provided the fake bombs and missile. The defense portrayed Hussein as a self-serving manipulator trying to please the government after his own fraud conviction. Jurors debated for 8 days before convicting the men in 2010. 3 years later, they lost an appeal. A possible phone number for Hussein rang unanswered on Thursday night. Hussein worked with the government on other stings, including one that targeted an Albany pizza shop owner and an imam and involved a loan using money from a fictitious missile sale. Both men who said they were tricked were convicted of money laundering and conspiring to aid a terrorist group. A few years later, Hussein was in the public eye again with a stretch limo when a stretch limo crashed in rural Shohari, New York, killing 20. Hussein owned the limo company operated by his son Naiman Hassan. After it emerged that the limo failed a safety inspection a month before the crash and that the driver did not have a commercial license, Numan Hussein was charged with criminally negligent homicide and manslaughter. His lawyer blamed a repair shop for the vehicle's problems and said his client was being treated like a scapegoat. Numan Hussein was convicted this May and is serving 5 to 15 years in prison. I'm Tyrone Bowman. Never surrender. Never quit.